got drunk and ended up at your place. From the moment that I saw you, I knew that it was love, bet that you felt the same. Standing here, I need to let you know, what if I had never let you go? Standing here, I need to let you know that I need you tonight. You should know that I miss you. So we talk about the past for a moment. I forget why we never lasted. With your hand on my knee, every single feeling comes back to me. Your lips pressed against mine after a night out. We got drunk and ended up at your place. That kind of love is not easy to find, babe. I haven't felt that since you went away. Your face in the crowd, I never thought that I would see you tonight. We lock eyes and you smile, every single memory comes back to life. Your lips pressed against mine after a night out. We got drunk and ended up at your place. From the moment that I saw you, I knew that it was love, bet that you felt the same. So we talk about the past for a moment. I forget why we never lasted. With your hand on my knee, every single feeling comes back to me. Your lips pressed against mine after a night out. We got drunk and ended up at your place. That kind of love is not easy to find, babe. I haven't felt that since you went away.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the Steve Freeman Podcast. It is Tuesday. How's everybody doing today? Hope everybody's doing great. I managed to solve some things today that have been an issue for a while. Well, let me just say this. I don't know yet if they're completely solved, but better anyway. So I've had this rolling sinus thing going on for 3 years. And it's like going back and forth with, doctors and stuff. And it's like, you see on the news sometimes, I don't watch the news that much, but, when you do, and they talk about the healthcare system, they talk about how broke it is here in the United States. And my God, they could not be possibly any more correct than they are in their assessment. It's just, it's crazy as far as referrals and insurance and all that. It's just absolutely, it's asinine to me what we have to go through. But I went back this morning, and I think we've about got it narrowed down, and we've about got it figured out. Thank God. So on a bunch of pills right now, there's no telling what might fly out of my mouth. That could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. Who knows? But anyway, we are back this week in the new studio. Last week when we had Jason Lewis on from Painfully Honest Tech, I'm still not completely, we've not gotten this room completely 100% dialed in. So, a little bit of technical difficulty. And so I was like, you know what, just forget it. We're just going to go into the other studio and we'll do it over there. So we did it over there, which means we weren't able to use this studio last week. So I'm glad to be back in here. Glad to be back in the studio. After all the work that we've put in it so far, we've still got a little bit more to do. We've got these other cameras that we've got to mount. And we finally got the Blackmagic ATM switcher in, so now we can plug all of these nice cameras, thank you to Sony, to use. So pumped up about that. And glad to be back in here. Nashville's weather's changing a little bit. Of course, doing what it always does. It was 65 degrees the other day, and, today it's, 20. I think that's part of the thing and part of the problem. What's keeping everybody sick is, it's unreal. It just goes back and forth and back and forth. But I'm ready for some consistency. I can tell you that. And I tell you, even beyond that, speaking of consistency, I'm ready for 70-degree weather. As I'm on the phone with my best friend in LA last night, he's like, I'm surprised you haven't been out here. And I'm like, yeah, it's time for a trip. I've got to come warm up because it's been cold. I'm just not a cold weather person. I like the warmth, man. I like the sun. I like the sunshine. And although we've been getting some sunshine the last couple of days, it has not at all been what you would call warm whatsoever. It's good to be with you tonight. Glad to have you here. If you're confused, especially on Twitch, we are simulcasting the podcast now to the YouTube channel, the Twitch channel, and Facebook. So you can type questions or comments or anything like that in the comment section of each one of those, and it'll throw it to me. And at least it's supposed to. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But I just thought maybe tonight we'd have a cool hangout session. I want to talk a little sports because I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl this weekend. I want to know who everybody's got. Who is everybody really looking forward to? Who does everybody want to win? You've got the option, of course, of Tom Brady and the Patriots. That guy just. How many times is he going to go to the Super Bowl? How many times are they going to win? And then you've got the great story of Sean McVay, Jared Goff, the LA Rams. I think I know who's going to win. I think I've got my money's on LA. I think LA is going to pull it off, but we kind of have a big to-do around here over Super Bowl weekend. That's something that I always just, it's kind of exciting and it's kind of sad at the same time because I love football so much that it's now, this is the end of the season, so I'm kind of sad to see it go away. But at the same time, it's like, it's the biggest game of the year, so you got to kind of get up for it and enjoy it. And so I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you guys are too. If you've got anything planned for the weekend, I got to be honest with you. We debate, and we have this debate in our house every year about whether or not to have a Super Bowl party. And I'm one of these people that I love the idea of having people over here until the people get here. And then I'm like, I really wish we wouldn't have had anybody over here. It's not that it's not that I don't enjoy company or I don't not like having people over, but I'm just kind of, I'm a quiet, reserved, purposeful recluse, So we were going back and forth. Are we going to have people over? Are we not going to have people over? And finally this year I was just like, no, we're not. We're going to eat junk food and we're going to watch football all day and football related stuff. And we're not going to have to worry about entertaining anybody. So this year we made the decision, no Super Bowl party. And it's like, I hate to be, antisocial, when actually I don't really hate to be antisocial. But it's like, I'm glad we made the decision this year to just kind of chill here at the house and not worry about entertaining anybody. So looking forward to it. King JN05 says, Patriots. Yeah, man, it could happen. Patriots could do it, man. Well, if you're living in New England, then you don't have a choice but to go for the Patriots. That is by far, most definitely. You get up in that area. I mean, even down here. I mean, I went to the Patriots and Titans game this year, and it was overwhelming the number of people we ran into that live here that are Patriots fans. It was kind of odd and kind of strange. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. I'm sad football season's over, but what are you going to do? We'll get it cranked back up in April. The draft is here in Nashville. I'm probably, I was saying earlier, I don't like most people, but it's one of those things where I would go out and be amongst people to go and experience the draft and do that one time. Just one time in my life. It's kind of like Comic-Con last year. I don't know that I would ever go back to Comic-Con, but I went because I wanted to do it, and it's one of those things where I wanted to say, okay, I came, I saw, I conquered. And I'm glad I went. I had a blast. It was a lot of fun. But I don't know that I would go back. So with the draft being here this year in Nashville, I'm probably gonna take part and go down there and have some fun. At least just witness it and take part in it. So we're gonna try that and do that when it comes around. I'm supposed to be getting an email any day now to talk about tickets and what all that's gonna entail. But yeah, so Super Bowl this weekend, and then I've got a busy couple of months coming up. I've got a couple albums I've got to produce, get out of the way. We've got some music video shoots for some artists that I'm producing that I've got to travel all over the country to go and do. So I'm looking forward to that. It's gonna be a really good time. And then of course here in Nashville we've got, and I'm gonna have a video on the YouTube channel coming out about this, but because it's so timely. But here in Nashville we've got the country radio seminar, and it's just a kiss-ass event is what it is. It's, radio program directors from all over the country come to Nashville to have this conference where basically the major labels and everybody else just spend a ton of money trying to get radio programmers' attention. And it's such a circle jerk that it's not even funny. And we'll start seeing stories here in a couple of weeks of people complaining about pay for play, about, if you're an independent artist and you want to play this venue while CRS is going on, they're going to start bitching, moaning, complaining about it costing this and costing that, when, it's a price of entry. It's always been, and it always will be. So it always surprises me when I see somebody new to the business start complaining about it. So we've got that coming up. The good thing about CRS is we've come to learn every year it snows during CRS. And if there's one thing everybody around here is ready for, and that is if it's going to be this cold, there better be little white stuff floating from the sky. And so it always snows during CRS. So we'll see how that goes. And then we start to kind of get into, award show season and all that kind of stuff. And it's really, honestly, it's one of those things where before long, we're going to get through January, and then February is going to start here next week. And this, for me anyway, is when the year really starts to feel like it's going to go by fast because there's so much industry stuff going on this time of year. And I'm getting to the age now. My birthday, my birthday is next week. And, I'm getting to the point now where I remember being younger and I wanted time to speed up. I wanted things to happen fast and hit certain benchmarks. And now I'm at the point where I'm getting older and it's like that's the last thing in the world I want. I want time to go by as slow as humanly possible. And you look around, you see your kids. My daughter's going to turn 16 this year, and it's gonna be weird. This year I will have a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old. And that for me is hard to believe. I mean, where has time gone? It has literally flown by. But yeah, a lot of good things going to happen this year. Had a really good time last night on Twitch. And if you are not following the Twitch channel, I highly encourage you to do it. It's twitch.tv/The Steve Freeman. Y'all know me. It's The Steve Freeman on everything. Had a really good stream last night. We were going to play some Fortnite, and Fortnite was down. So it's like, it's almost, I swear to God, last night, and while I was on and I was streaming and we couldn't get Fortnite to work, I was on with several other people. And it was almost one of those weird things where, when the power goes out and your cell phone battery dies and you're, okay, now what do we do? And it was kind of one of those things last night. And I had ended up discovering another Twitch streamer that's actually here in Nashville, Janelle Wheeler. And I was in her chat. When she got done, I was streaming, and she rated my stream with all of her viewers. And we all just kind of hung out. I played some new music and stuff that hasn't been released yet. We played a little bit of live music. It just turned into a lot of fun. And that's kind of part of the reason that I was telling you guys a couple weeks ago that I'm stepping back a little bit from the music business this year for my sanity. And I am focusing more on streaming. I'm focusing certainly more on the podcast. Working with the business clients that we have. And then, I've kind of brought it back to developing a couple artists that I really believe in that we're making huge strides with. And I really want to build out the eSports company and do some other things like that. And last night was because I'm about to spend a lot of money on this eSports company. I mean, it's a significant amount of money. And it was kind of cool last night to actually see that community engage and actually go, okay, this is something. This is worth the time. It's worth the effort, the energy, and the financial investment to see an engagement with the community. So I had a really good time on Twitch last night with everybody. If anybody's in here that was in there last night, thank you guys. It was just such a blast. It was such a good time. And we're going to do more of it. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's just so interesting seeing how the live streaming thing is really it is absolutely taking over. I mean, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on Twitch, whether it's anywhere, and it doesn't have to just be gaming. It's amazing to me that a larger number of the population and people are. It's almost like it's the. You remember when you were a kid? Some of you, if you're watching, I'm a lot older than you are, but when I was a kid, I remember when we got cable TV for the first time. And then it was like, oh my God, forever we had 4 channels, and I'm even talking before Fox. And, you had 4 channels, and then you got cable TV, and it was like, oh my God, you have just, your world has just been expanded. And I had a business meeting the other day about the eSports stuff, and I was telling them and reading them the statistics of how many people are consuming it, and podcasts lumped into that, like what we're doing now. And it's almost like streaming and podcasts have become this new frontier, almost like cable TV was to us, or satellite TV, because now you've got so many options. You can log on to YouTube right now, or Twitch, or Facebook, or any other platform that offers live streaming, and you can find anything in the world you want to find or that you're interested in. So it's all there. It's like like I said, it's like a new frontier. It's kind of cool, and there's something there for everybody. And on the business side of it, it's just amazing. It doesn't have just to be gaming or anything like that. When you look, and trust me, before I got involved, I did extensive research. And when you start digging in and you start finding, and we've talked about this about the music business before, anything that's done on a large scale can be replicated on a small scale. And when you look at the trends of what some of the smartest people in the United States, of course, but the world, and see where they're putting their money, what they're investing in, you can replicate that on a smaller scale. And it's when you start getting into and digging into the numbers, it's amazing what's going on right now. And you unfortunately sometimes you get the bad with the good with that. It's not all good. I had over the weekend, last weekend, one of my younger daughter's friends from school had been over here before, and he had seen my other room, my streaming setup, and he's blown away by it. And he's like, I want to stream. I want to do this, that, and the other. So they asked if they could come over the weekend, and me kind of tell them what they need to do and what they need and the equipment and all that kind of stuff. And him and his dad came over, and we were sitting there and we were talking, and I said, it's kind of a funny thing, but we never in a million years would have thought that we would be the parents or the generation that is completely opposite from our parents. And we're like, hey, stop reading that book and go play and stream your video games. Because, when I was a kid, it's like my mother would have to rip the Nintendo controller from my hand, to go do something, go outside. And so funny how technology has changed, and the world has changed, and business has changed, culture especially, into now, whether you're gaming or whether you're an independent artist, which we're going to talk about that in just a second, how to use these platforms for that. But I was telling his dad, I said, I can't discourage it with my kids, because now, a lot of these gamers and streamers, they're making, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. If you want to back down from that and go, okay, well, that's kind of the top upper echelon. And it is. But there are a lot of people making a very good living. I'll tell you this, they're making a better living than if they were to go to college. Now, speaking of college, almost every major college in the United States right now has an esports team, or several esports team that plays other, League of Legends, World of Warcraft, Fortnite, all that stuff. And you can actually get a college scholarship based on that now, just like you would get a football scholarship, a baseball scholarship, gymnastics scholarship, volleyball, all of that. And that's kind of where we are at right now, and how far we've come. And I was telling his dad, you can't anymore discourage your children from realizing and taking advantage of the technological advances that we are lucky enough to get to enjoy in. And one of the things that I wanted to talk tonight about, because I had actually somebody email me and say, that kind of posed this as a question, and I thought, well, you know what, that's a good topic of conversation for the podcast. We can definitely talk about that. I'm using these platforms for the obvious reasons that I'm using the platforms, but getting away and stepping away from gaming for a second, and I'm talking to you independent artists out there. There were, for years and years and years, and if you've watched a lot of my videos over the years, then you've heard me say this 100,000 times, but you've got to take advantage of the platforms of the day. And what used to separate an independent artist from a major label artist were just a very few things. One was radio, and we'll kind of go over this too. One was radio, which radio has been eliminated from that equation, in all honesty, because nobody's listening to the radio anymore, and numbers prove that. It's all about Spotify and Apple Music and other streaming music platforms. So there was one wall. Radio was the huge. If you wanted to get discovered, you had to be in the top 30 on the charts, top 40 on the charts, and you had to be being played in all of the medium, large, and major market radio stations. Well, you don't need that anymore. All of that now is for chart position. And chart position is bought and paid for and negotiated by the record labels. And you say, well, Steve, how do you know that? Because I remember getting emails 3 weeks before a song would go number one, and the record label telling me that the song was going to go number one in 3 weeks. Now, the only way that they know that is that that's been negotiated. The spin counts have been negotiated. They've gotten on the phone with the radio program directors and gone, okay, we've got 5 records on the charts. We need you to pull each one of these back 12 spins and give those 60 spins to this artist so it pushes them forward 1 or 2 chart positions. And they do that, and they jockey those positions all the way up the chart. It's very easy. So you take radio out of the equation, and if you're out there and you're an independent artist, you need to take radio out of your brain anyway, because you're never going to get played on the radio stations that matter as an independent artist. And I've said it a million times. I'm going to say it one more time because it's funny to me how I still get asked about this all the time, and it's one of the things that I preach on the most. Each one of the major corporate broadcasting companies, whether it's Clear Channel / iHeartRadio, they will always be Clear Channel to me. CBS, Intercom, Cumulus, any of those, they all have corporate mandates that explicitly prevent program directors from playing independent artists' music. So if you're an independent artist and your main mindset is still, I got to get on the radio, then you need to completely reevaluate, because it's never going to happen. It has never happened, and it will never happen. The closest thing to an independent record, a true independent record ever becoming number one, was about 10 years ago, and I can't even remember that they were a Canadian band, Canadian country band. And their label was for the most part a pretty much true independent record label. They spent $1 million to get that band that number one, and then they filed bankruptcy within 6 months afterwards. So there's nothing you can point to. If anybody can tell me, oh, well, no, this did, I will tell you the story behind it. They weren't true independent artists. So radio was a wall. And there's a lot of you out there that are independent artists that are still allowing radio to be a wall. Radio shouldn't be a wall for you, because it shouldn't even enter your consciousness. It shouldn't even be a part of your marketing, promotions, strategy. It's off limits to you. Talking about CRS coming up, and you think, oh, well, what we're going to do is we're going to treat this, and you've hired a team, and you've hired all these people, and they say, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to hire independent radio promoters, and we're going to go after the music row chart, the secondary markets. Okay, that gets you nowhere. It doesn't lead to touring dollars. It doesn't lead to, nobody in the major labels are looking down at the Music Row charts going, let's just see how well they do, and then we might swoop in. It's not happening, because when you pay an independent radio promoter money to promote your records and singles for airplay on they're in, and I mean this with all due respect, because I come from a radio background, and I absolutely love small market radio. But for the independent artist, it means literally nothing. Nothing whatsoever. Those stations aren't monitored. Okay? So, meaning if you're a songwriter and you wrote the song and you're putting it out there, you're not going to get any publishing royalties from it, because those stations are not monitored. They physically handwrite and turn in the number of spins for the chart position on the Music Row chart. They are not monitored like Billboard and Mediabase and Nielsen stations are. And 98% of those stations that make up that chart, 98% of them are in markets that don't matter. And when I say markets that don't matter, I'm not being like the flyover state guy. What I'm saying is that most of those markets don't have a venue that, even if you do get your song playing in that market, there's no venue for you to go play to capitalize on getting the airplay in that market. So many of you are wasting your money. And then I see it all the time on social media, how somebody's, we moved up 5 spots. We're number 41 on the Music Row chart. That is like being number 3,455th on the Billboard chart. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters on the Billboard chart are 1 through 30. And you as an independent artist will never get there. You'll never see it. It will never happen. Not trying to discourage you. I'm just saying, if you know the rules by which to play the game, it makes the game a little bit easier, and it certainly makes it a lot easier to understand. So radio was one big wall, was one big barrier. If you remove that as a barrier, it's gone. If you say, okay, I'm going to use Spotify because that is something I have access to. You're going to use Spotify. You're going to use Apple Music. The next major thing that major labels had over independent artists was distribution. For those of you that don't know, distribution is getting your music into the stores where people can buy it. That's now open. You can go through, I have spent the last year and a half going over several distribution outlets and reviewing them for you and telling you about them, telling what you should do and what you shouldn't do, who you should use and who you shouldn't use. But that distribution wall is now torn down. You have the ability, I could write a song right now. I could go into the recording studio. I could record it and I could have it on iTunes in less than an hour. So, meaning that everybody in the world now has access to your music. One thing that has happened with all of these walls being torn down is it has really caused you as an independent artist to sit back and have to realize that this is really all on you. And we don't see more independent artists succeed because most of you don't thrive under pressure. Most of you want what looks like in the perception of success and all, but I don't think that many of you and a lot of you are actually willing to put in the hard work that it takes to get there. I think you think in your head you are. But when you can have a song on iTunes and Google Play and everywhere else, Spotify, it is always your job to bring that attention to that song. I see so many of you, you spend so much of your time trying to go find money over here or get money over here so that you can pay somebody else to do what you should be doing yourself. And the one thing that nobody talks about, and I would, because you guys you want the perception of somebody else doing it. You want the perception of having a team, of having, I don't dare want to have to call somebody myself. I don't, that looks bad. No, hustle never looks bad. It's the one ingredient that you will never succeed at anything without. Remember, we've talked about this before. Persistence, consistency, and a willingness to sacrifice. A part of that sacrifice can be you not being able to come off like a superstar all the time and stop playing on perception and just be who you really are. But I find that so many of you guys, you don't want that. You don't really want that at all. You want that ride to the top to be as comfortable as humanly possible. And I understand it. You've been told all of your life that you're talented, which I have issues with that as well. So everything's there for you. Now, we move on to talking about these platforms. You now have the ability to have a song, album, EP, whatever, on all of the major streaming platforms and in all of the major stores where everybody's buying their music. So having your music available is no longer a problem. You don't need radio and you don't need a major label to get your music out there, be able to put it in front of people, and make it available. So all of that's gone. The major differences between a major label and an independent artist are gone. The only thing that remains was access to people in large amounts. That's the one thing that the major labels had on everybody, was that they could they had all of these outlets, whether it be television, radio, all of these different outlets. They had the ability and the sway, because it's all bought and paid for, to just take that light and shine it over on this artist, and stuff would start happening. What I find interesting and cool about what's going on right now, especially with live streaming, with YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook, and other live streaming outlets, is that now that wall as well is gone. See, the only thing, whether you are a small business, whether you're an independent artist, no matter what you are, the one thing that you have now is access. You have access and you have availability. Now it's your job to go out and bring that attention in. I got into a huge debate and argument with a pretty big YouTuber not long ago, because they kept putting out videos talking about how to navigate the YouTube algorithm to make sure that your videos get seen more and you get more views, and it's all about the algorithm. And that really upsets me, because it's not about the algorithm. It is your job to bring attention to your product. I said it a few weeks ago. It's not Field of Dreams. This is not build it and they will come. This is build it and then put up billboards, Facebook ads, Instagram story ads, do the right hashtags, learn how to work social media, and get out there, and it is on you to bring that attention to your product. That is the step that most people go wrong. They think, oh, we've got a great album. People, it's going to find its way. Or we're going to go out and we're going to pay this person and this team, and we're going to spend $5,000 a month of grandma and grandpa's money, and we're going to hire a publicist, and we're going to do all of this, whenever you could save all of that money and do a little bit more of the sacrifice that we've talked about in the past, and do this yourself. I know too many people doing it the right way that are finding success. That is when we bump into the problem that we've talked about before, and that is, I think most artists today are more interested in the perception of fame over the reality of success. Because the reality of success is a weight that you have to carry around on your back 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It never gets lessened. It never gets lighter. Or you do the hard work, and if you're an independent artist, sure, that's when you start making noise, and when you start finding some of that success. The new major label model is they don't develop artists anymore. They don't. They jump on already moving trains. So the harder you work to get your train moving, the more eyes that you're going to have on you. And if your goal is to get that major label album or that major label record deal, or you want to get a publishing deal, let me tell you right now, you want to know how to get a publishing deal? Get a cut. No publishing companies are signing new writers anymore. They're either signing writers that have major label record deals or that already have a cut because before they got a publishing deal, their best friend happened to write for a major publishing company and they were writing together. And then that major publisher got a cut. And now that publisher wants a piece of their writer's buddy's half of the song, third of the song, whatever. That's how you get a publishing deal. Get a cut. There's so many of you sitting around thinking that if my songs were better, if this were better, and you're selling yourself short because it doesn't have anything to do with any of that. You're sitting around thinking that if our album sounded better, or if we had Michael Knox produce it, or if we had this person mix it, or if we recorded at this studio instead of this studio, none of that matters. What matters is the financing and the money behind it. If a publisher sees you getting a cut, you're going to get publishing deal offers. If a major record label sees you starting to sell units and put asses in seats at concerts, they're going to want a piece of it. That same thing with management. I said this in one of my videos that I put up sometime last year. I see a lot of you sit around talking about, well, if I just had a manager, if I just had a booking agent, if I just had. Okay, let me walk you through this with managers. And this is the same thing as record label, publicists, publishers, okay? All of those people only make money if you make money. So if you're out there and you're like, I deserve to have a better manager, all I need is a better manager. A manager is going to make, depending on, I've seen wild numbers, so I'm going to give you a liberal swing. Managers make between 10% and 20% of what you make. If you're out there making diddly squat, how good of a manager do you think you're going to attract? Because they make up to 20% of what you make. And I had a buddy at William Morris tell me they value their contract at $10,000. Just the paper and the ink that their contract is printed on, they value that at $10,000. And at 10% that they're going to charge as being your manager or your booking agent, you've got to be making $10,000 a night for them to even be interested. Where everybody goes wrong is you guys get this mindset that in order to get to $10,000 a night, you've got to have William Morris as your booking agent, or CAA, or Paradigm, or any of the others. You don't. You need a phone. And you need to start remembering and acting like your phone also, I'm going to shock you all here. Your phone makes outgoing phone calls. Shocker. It's this weirdest thing. You can pick up your phone and there's this little thing down here and it's got a picture of a phone on it. And then there's this one, it's 4 over if you've got an iPhone. It's called keypad. And it's got numbers on it. This thing will actually make a phone call. And that's what it takes. That, guys, again, is going back. Persistence, consistency, and sacrifice. Part of the sacrifice deal is not having somebody else do it for you. It's you doing it yourself. I think I've told this story before. Every independent artist, if you've not watched this movie, and now I'm not going to be able to remember the name of the movie, but you can find it on, you Google it. It's the documentary made about Kansas. And it's not that I was ever this big, huge Kansas fan, but I'm a huge documentary film fan. So I watched in music guy. So I watched it. What I thought, and I try to make every artist that I work with, whether I'm producing them, developing them, writing with them, it doesn't matter. I say, go watch this movie. Because there's this one particular part in the movie where they're talking about they had recorded their album, and they were back in Kansas. And they had like $9.13 between all the members of the band, and they were trying to decide how were they going to eat. There were 3 members of the band that smoked. They couldn't afford to eat and buy cigarettes at the same time. And they were sitting at this gas station when they found out that they had the number one record in the country. They didn't have a manager. They didn't have a publicist. They didn't have a booking agent. They didn't have anything. But they had the they had the number one record in the country. And so they said, okay, well, that's something we can definitely talk about. What do we need to do? And instead of sitting around thinking, okay, well, we need to start reaching out. We need to cash in this $9.13 we've got for dimes so that we can start calling managers and booking agents and say, hey, we've got the number one album in the country. Can you book us? They went and they got rolls of dimes and they got out the yellow pages and they started calling venues themselves. They started booking themselves. They started doing the work. They started putting in more sacrifice. The other part of the story that I find interesting is that it was 15 years, almost 20 years before they had a quote-unquote booking agent and manager. They continued to do that themselves. But I see too many artists. I dealt with them, guys. I have personally hand delivered the keys to a brand spanking new Ford E350 van for a band that we signed to our label. Delivered it to them and said, here you go, guys, hit the road. And had one of them look back at me and go, man, I cannot wait till we can get a Prevost. And I'm thinking, you're getting paid to go out and do what it is that you say that you love to do. And you want to get better at it, and you want to be successful at it. And somebody just hands you the keys to a brand spanking new Ford E350 van, 11-passenger van that I paid for out of my pocket. I physically paid for it, wrote the check, and have that person look back at me and go, man, I can't wait till we can get a Prevost. As ungrateful as that sounds, it doesn't surprise me that it's that mentality and that attitude that most independent artists have. Now, you don't necessarily think that way of think, okay, well, I'm going to come off as ungrateful. But we have this problem and this issue because the music business and success in the music business, I will tell you, is a drug. It's a drug that is just as hard as cocaine or heroin or anything else. The worst drug ever on the face of the planet is called attention. Try having it and then not having it anymore. It's very difficult. So as an independent artist or a young artist or a new artist, when you start to get a little taste of that attention, because that's why we all went into this business. Look, I mean, people can sit around and say, well, I just, I've just always had this inside me. No, you want other people to look at you and tell you how great you are. That's why you're in this business. You're an attention hound. And the thing of it is you've got to embrace that and you've got to be okay with that and stop trying to make excuses for why you are the way that you are. We all went into this business because we wanted to be in front of people. We wanted to be considered above other people. We wanted to be considered better than other people. And we wanted that self-gratification that only comes from the adoration and attention of other people. First off, that's okay. Everybody deals with that in one form or the other. It doesn't have to be the music business. Talk with this about Twitch and streaming and gaming. I see, and on YouTube, I see these poor guys and girls on YouTube. They just want to be famous so fucking bad that they can't stand it. They have no idea what they're going to do with the proceeds of that, or they just want it. They want it because they think it's the key to the next thing. But going back to what I was saying, the walls are torn down. If you are an independent artist and you are not finding success right now, it is not the fact that you don't have a manager, that you don't have a publicist, that you don't have this or that you don't have that. It is your fault. Because the world is an open marketplace now. Does it take money to do this? Absolutely. Stop listening to these people. I have banned her from my Facebook page so many times, I can't even see straight. But there's this stupid, savvy musician chick that talks about how I make 6 figures a year without a record deal. Number one, that's all bullshit. And then there's another video, how I did it with no money. You're not going to do it with no money. So you got to find it. You got to make it. You got to borrow it. You got to do whatever. It does take money. This is This is like golf, okay? This is an expensive hobby. You know, nobody bats an eye at paying $120,000 to $150,000 or more to go to college for 4 years. It's the same thing. You have to financially invest in yourself or find somebody that believes in you enough that is willing to do that. Because I don't work for free. Anybody, you get what you pay for. I don't work for free. I don't do passion projects. Steve Freeman is a passion project. I'm so passionate about me, it's not even funny. But we do this for a living. And I find so many artists that are like, well, if you just believed it, if you believed it. Look, belief won't pay a mortgage payment. Belief won't pay the tuition at my kid's school. Kroger, unfortunately, will not take belief or passion as payment for food or groceries. You go down to Shell, they won't take belief or passion as a form of payment. Starbucks, you can't walk into Starbucks and say, I am so passionate about coffee, I feel like you should. No. So all of this, and we've talked many times about the importance of those of you that want to be in the music business, understanding more about the business of it than the music of it, because the music doesn't matter. I mean, there are many examples I can give you of that, but think about this. There are all certain kinds of music that we all hate, right? But there are people making literal fortunes making that music. So the music doesn't have to be what we each individually would assess or agree together is great. I don't like that screaming death metal shit. I don't like it at all. But there are bands out there making $25,000, $30,000 a night, screaming their head off 3 nights a week. Doesn't mean it has to be great. You've got to focus and understand the business side. Know the rules of the game that you're getting involved with. The other thing that I would encourage all of you to find a group of people, and it can be a small group, it can be a big group. Find a group of people that you can trust and continue to trust those people. Nothing frustrates me more when I will get an email and it's an independent artist wanting to talk with me and wanting me to help them, or wanting me when I do a one-on-one session, and we spend about the first 20 minutes, or especially in emails. I know this person, and I've done this, and this is what this person told me, and this person told me I was really great, and so I think you should work with me. And my response to that is always, if A through triple Z of what you just laid out is correct, you don't need me. Plain and simple. You shouldn't need me. Find a group of people that you trust. Listen to those people. Now, these people have to be knowledgeable in what they're talking about. Mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, and uncles and aunts and school teachers, they don't. Because if they knew anything about this business and doing this, they would be doing this instead of doing whatever it is they're doing. Find people who you can trust, who are relevant. And going back to what I said a minute ago, stop thinking that everybody that does this, when you want them to do something for you, is a user. This is a pay-for-play business. You want me to produce your record? It's going to cost you. But you would never go over, to Tony Brown. You'd never go up to Tony Brown and expect Tony Brown to do your record for little or nothing, right? You've got to think about all these things. You've got to get a firm understanding of the business side of the music business, because the music doesn't matter. There is a market. No matter what kind of music you're making, there's a market for it. And God bless you if you found somehow to create a style of music that is not already out there, and then you've got a real bright future ahead of you. But this is real talk, guys. You know, this is what you've come to expect from me. And I, as I'm getting older, I'm getting less tolerant. Like 10 years ago, I would handle people with kid gloves. I would try to, despite the amount of success I'd even had at that point, I would try to sell myself and justify what I was charging and do it. Look, anymore, I'm not. I do not have time to deal with people who are not taking this as seriously as I take it. And people that don't know what they're up against. This is an expensive hobby. It's an expensive passion to have. And if you're going to do it right, and you're going to do it right with the right people, it's going to cost you more. So your job is not to try to find a way to do it cheaper, because there is no cheaper way to do it. Your talent, I've said this before as well, talent has never been an equal substitution for finances when it comes to either business or the music business. Either one. I mean, I've bumped into it hundreds of times where I can tell somebody, okay, well, it's going to cost this, this, and this, and this. And they'll say, well, but, you know, where's the talent factor? I mean, my talent should get... No. Your talent is not a substitution for financial gain or expense. It's expenses. Your talent will never make up for the expenses. So know what you're getting into. And talking about the circle of people that you need to trust, realize that everybody has a different opinion. Trust me, there are people that do not like my opinions. But what I'm talking to you guys about, and when my source of advice that I always give you guys, let me tell you how I learned to do it right, okay? And this is on the real, because we live in a business now where it's never let them see you sweat. The only reason that I have been as successful as I have been as a producer and a songwriter and a businessman, the only reason I have been this successful and I know what I'm talking about is because I did everything wrong 2 or 3 times before. I only know the right road to go down because I went down all of the wrong ones. I've been there. I owned a record label where we spent $200,000 at the Music Row level, on the Music Row charts, thinking that we were going to build and develop our artists from there and we were going to grow them. Look, I made that mistake. I had 4 independent radio promoters on staff for 6 years, wasting money. So when I sit here and I tell you this doesn't work, I'm not telling you it's just this, I don't know, pull this thing out of thin air. Steve said it doesn't work. It doesn't work because I spent my hard money and lost my money doing it. And it doesn't have anything to do with the talent level. So that's what I'm telling you. Find that group of people that you can trust. Make sure that these people are relevant. I hear this one all the time too, and I'm like over my head with this one. It never ceases to amaze me that I'll get an email from an artist that wants me to work with them or produce their record or whatever. And they spend the first 20, 30 minutes of our conversation talking to me about what this person says about them, and they've worked with them, and this is what they think. Except the only problem with that person is that they were relevant 35 fucking years ago. If they were in the business 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and they're not having the same success right now that they had 25 years ago, they have no clue what they're talking about. Because times have changed. Stop dealing with irrelevant people, even though they may have had success 30 years ago. I hear it all the time. Oh, so-and-so, I mean, Yeah, he was in Clint Black's team. Okay, great. Well, Clint Black was relevant 30 years ago. Clint Black is not relevant anymore. We live in a different day and a different time. It would be like, relating it to football, it would be like stepping out on the field today in the uniforms and helmets that they wore in the 20s and thinking that you're just as safe as everybody else out there. It's no different. Work with people that are relevant. Listen to people that are relevant. Take advice from people who are relevant. You don't have to take advice from me, but find somebody that you can trust that is relevant in what is going on in the business today, because you can only expect somebody to do for you what they've done for somebody else. You can't expect to look at somebody else and go, I'm going to be the first person they get to hear. It doesn't work that way. It never has worked that way. It never will work that way. Why? Because success breeds success. People that are successful stick together. If you want to know why it always seems like this one group of people is constantly they wake up on the right side of the fucking bed every single day, and shit just goes right constantly. Well, have you ever noticed that those group of people seem to travel in a pack? Then you got then Ed over here is having a bad day. But these four people over here, everything is great. It's because success travels in packs, folks. It can literally rub off. So if you want to be successful, hang around successful people. Involve yourself with successful people. This is where, and a lot of people in the industry hate when I talk about this, but I'm going to say it because it's the truth. A lot of you new artists or songwriters come to town, and you're told, because we put out all these facades, and I'll be honest and I'll be real with you about songwriting here in a second too. But you can't write with this person, you can't write with that person, you don't have access to this person. So everybody, all you new people that come to town, you all write together, and nothing is ever going to come out of that. You're all in the same boat. There's no big, nobody's in a bigger boat coming by. You guys are spending too much time with the same people that are on the same level as you. And you're spending all this time with people that are competing directly with you. Because you've heard me say this before too. There are no friends. You don't make friends in the music business. You think you have friends until you succeed and they don't. All of a sudden, you're not friends. You can have friendly business relationships. But especially for songwriters, on the songwriting front, look, I didn't understand this 20 years ago. I didn't understand why, I wanted to write with this writer, but he wouldn't write with me. I didn't understand. I thought, man, Nashville puts out, we're good people and we're about music and we're just a big brotherhood. No, that is bullshit. We're not. And later in life, I came to understand it. And it's not that I don't want to write with these people, but I do this for a living. So I have got, when I write a song, or when I schedule my rights, or my publisher schedules my rights, all of that is based on whether or not they think that we can get a song out of that co-write, that we can do one of several things with. Either get it placed in a television, film, movie, or we're writing something because we know, Tim McGraw or Keith Urban or so-and-so is cutting next week and they're looking for this particular kind of song. They don't have it yet. So we're going to pair these two guys together that have a history of coming out with that kind of song. Because everybody's in this to make money. This is a business. So now I understand, and I feel horrible when I tell somebody that I can't write with them. But doing that is almost like calling in sick to your job to help a buddy for free for the day. And where, as much as I would love to be a good friend and help that friend, I've got to go to work. So now I get it. So if a lot of you guys are out there, especially songwriters, and you're wondering why you can't get these better co-writes, that's why. It's not that the other writer is an asshole and they don't see you as valuable or don't think that you're a good songwriter. This has to do with work and getting up and going in and working and co-working with other people that you have a better than 50% shot of something happening with that song. If I spend it writing with this person over here that doesn't have a publishing deal, number one, that cuts out an entire team. So when I write with somebody, that's why I only write with people that have publishing deals. Because when we get done and we have that song, my publishing creative department is going to take it and pitch it, and their creative department is going to take it and pitch it. You've got more opportunities. If I write with somebody that doesn't have a publishing deal, the job's squarely on my shoulders to make something happen with that song. So it's in my best financial interest to spend the valuable time that I have writing with somebody that gives that product or that song the best chance of earning revenue. But you guys, I heard somebody put out there once, and I thought this was brilliant. I don't know that I necessarily agree with all of it, but it's the rule of thirds, and I think it's smart. And actually, and go back, I actually do kind of agree with all of it because it for the reasons that I'll tell you. But it's called the rule of thirds, and what that is they say that you should spend 33% of your time with people who are a level below you, who are not quite to where you are yet. Let me say this. This is not saying that they're worse than you or they're not as good as you as a human being or talent. None of that. It's just, if you think of it as a ladder, right? You may be up here. Well, there are people down here on rungs 1, 2, and 3. Spend 33% of your time with people that are lower on the ladder than you are. Spend another 33% of your time with people who are on the same level as you are. Spend the other 33% of your time with people who are where you're trying to get. The 33% of the time that you spend with people that are below the ladder are going to remind you of where you've come from. It serves two purposes. And I've talked about this a lot. If you are in business, music business, it doesn't matter. You have got to learn to appreciate small victories because there are very few large victories in this business. They're all little bitty small victories, one little victory that led to one little step. One, when you spend 33% of your time and you look down, you're helping somebody else, which we should all be doing. There's not enough of that in Nashville. We put out that's the way we are, and we're not. We saw off the rung of the ladder below us. That's what we do. We smile to your face and we stab you in the back because we don't want anybody competing with us. We view everyone as a competitor. That's why there's no friends. So spend that 33% doing two things. One, being able to look back and go, my God, at times I don't feel like I have accomplished anything, but then spending time around this person reminds me that I am on a journey. I am moving forward. I am climbing up the mountain. And most importantly, you have and are allowed the opportunity to help somebody else behind you because we don't have enough of that. The other in the middle, spend 33% of the time with people that are on your same level. That's a creative thing. Spend time with people who are where you are at because they may have other perspectives. They may have other creative ideas. You may play the guitar. They may play the piano. You may think you're a solo artist and you get together with them and realize, my God, we sing really good together and we write really good songs. Holy shit, we should be a duo. And then you have somebody to share that journey with. And that's what spending 33% of your time with people that are on your same level is all about. It is about recognizing that there is a boat and you're in it with other people. That's important. Then upwards, spend 33% of your time with people who are where you want to be. Because I can promise you, nothing gives you the strength, the energy, and the passion and the hunger to be persistent, consistent, and be willing to sacrifice more than spending time with people who are where you want to be and seeing the fruits of their labor. It's like I said, success brushes off. And many different reasons you could say. You never know. If you're spending time with people that are where you want to be, number one, you're going to learn how to get there. That's number one. You spend time with people who have walked the path, you will learn the path. Second of all, it gives you a sense of appreciation for their journey and knowing that it's not all overnight success. Success in the music business is like a 10-year overnight success. In the world we live in now with American Idol and all of this crap, with Carrie Underwood going from, serving burgers at Sonic to sold out concerts. Not that I have anything against Carrie Underwood, but there is something that gets built and instilled in you when you fail. And there will always be a piece missing from Carrie Underwood because she never played to an empty room. Never. Not once. She'll never know what that's like. She will always have to look back and go, she is where she is because she was a spotlight was shown on her and she was put in front of 25 million people every week. That's not taking anything away from her talent. I'm just saying at some point, when you're spending time with these people that are where you want to be, you will learn the jagged edges of the journey. And most importantly, you experience what it's like to actually achieve the goal that you're trying to achieve. And if you spend your time with the right 33% of people who are where you want to be, if they're the right people, they're going to help you get from where you are to where they are. Because, see, people up here, we don't look down and see those people as competition. I used to, and I don't anymore. I just removed myself from that conversation altogether. I don't see anybody as competition because regardless of it being 25 years later and all the success that I've had, I still get up every day and I know that there's one person responsible for whether or not I continue to be successful or I fail. And that guy looks back at me in the mirror. That's it. It's not up to anybody else whether or not I succeed. It is up to me. And it is the same for you guys. So that's what I'm saying. Try to implement that. Really think about that. And I know that in some cases that spending that 33% of your time with people that are where it's hard to get access to some of those people. But that is where also that I would ask you to really sit down and think about your definition of success. Because I can assure you some of the most successful people that I know you've never heard of. We as a society, but especially if you're a goal-oriented person and you're trying to find your way to success, you've got to stop thinking and looking. If you're a 16, 17-year-old girl and you want to be in the music business, you've got to stop looking and going, okay, Ariana Grande is that 33%. Seriously. You have got to stop taking the top 1% of the 1% and pin that to the wall as that's having made it. Because like I said, I can assure you, I know successful people that I know some of the most successful people in business and in the music business that you have never heard of. I've said it before. This past year and just recently, I've written with artists who have top 20 records on Billboard and cannot pay their car payment. And then the next day, I've also written with an artist that nobody watching this or listening in the future has heard of, but makes over $1 million a year with their music. So a lot of this of what I'm taking is only going to work for you. What I'm putting out there for you guys is going to work if you don't stop and have a real heart-to-heart talk with yourself about how you define success. And I promise you that if you define success in financial terms, you're going to fail. Because the financial part of success only comes after you've succeeded. There's nobody waiting on you at the success checkout line with a check. You have to be successful, and then the finances come. And stop judging people as to their success level or their value as to where they are in their world or your world financially. I don't get this because I wasn't born this way. But I have friends that have, please understand when I say this, I'm not being demeaning at all. I just don't have a basis for understanding of it. But I have friends that I grew up with that do regular jobs and are as happy as they can possibly be. They're happy. And I don't understand that. I knew at a very early age what I wanted to do. And I knew how I defined success. And I put those benchmarks out there. But I often forget that just because that is my definition, that it's not everybody else's definition. And guys, sometimes, see, if you place all your emphasis on success equaling money, you're going to be disappointed, because what you're going to find in that void between success and money, that where if you're one of these people and you write out success and then you put an equal sign and you put money, that equal sign most of the time is where things go wrong, and that's where happiness lies. And sometimes you will learn that success may lead to happiness, and that happiness doesn't always lead to financial success. Now, what I have found is that being happy is very valuable. And you've heard older people say this. It's not all about, money and everything like that. Money doesn't buy happiness, and that's the truth. Money doesn't buy happiness. What money does is it affords you the ability to find things that make you happy without the stress or concern of worrying about it, which can be a good thing. It can also be a bad thing. So the moral of the story this week, I would love for you guys to take away two things. I would really love for you to sit down with yourself and think about it hard and go, how do I define success? Really think about it. Then think about what we were talking about, the rule of thirds. Think about how spending 33% of your time with people that are below you coming up, and 33% of your time with people who are in the boat with you at the same level, and 33% of your time with people that are where you want to go, or that are just ahead of you in the process. I promise you, if you sit down and you think about all of that together, you'll start to come out with a plan that will work for you. Because there's nothing more I want on the face of the earth than to see every single one of you guys succeed. Every single one of you. Because it's possible. See, there's no limit on success or happiness, right? There's no cap on it. There's no, okay, well, only 4 billion people can be happy. Sorry, we just hit the mark. Now, we can't all have the same idea of what makes, that's why most people fail and they quit. Is because they get involved with things that do have a cap, that have a limited space available, and you were too late buying your ticket. That just means you've got to find your own thing. So I encourage you guys to think about that, and I promise you that you will find your way, and that I think that if you sit down and you think about it honestly, I think, and you're really, see, this is the other thing about this. You can't lie to yourself, right? And we all do that. Stop lying to yourself and be honest with yourself. Stop talking to yourself as that person that you want people to perceive you to be. That is step number one. Take off that facade of that perception facade of what that you want everybody else to perceive you as. Take that suit off and connect with you again and answer those questions honestly. How do you define success? Most importantly, how do you define it in the next 90 days? How do you define it in the next 6 months? How do you define it by the end of this year? Goals are important, but short-term goals are more important. Set goals you can achieve and ask yourself, find that definition for yourself. How do I define success? And then chase it. Be willing to be persistent, consistent, and willing to sacrifice. And it's not off the table for anybody. I can promise you that. All right, we'll jump into chat here. I'll try to answer some questions. Let's see. Game Over says money helps. You know, honestly, man, money does help, but I can honestly tell you that money has not been the main factor in me achieving anything that I wanted to achieve in my life. Because even to this day, I still see it as a hurdle that I get up and jump over every single day. Because if you ever meet anybody that will tell you that they have enough of it, they're lying to you. Why does Jeff Bezos keep Amazon? Why does he invest in other companies? Why does Warren Buffett continue to be one of the leading investors in the country, in the world? You don't think he's got enough money? So we can't sell ourselves short like that. We can't tell. It's not about the money, because you'll never have enough of it, ever. I don't care if you've got $10 trillion over there. You're going to want 10 trillion in one. So do not let money or finances be a stipulation to your happiness or your success. I promise you, it sounds backwards to think of it this way, but I promise you that if you remove that and you focus on just what it takes to get there, I promise you that if you remove that component early, then you're going to realize that it's not a component that's needed at the other end either. Keep that in mind. If you guys have any questions, if you're watching on Twitch or you're watching on Facebook, you're watching on Instagram, or not Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, you can type your question or comment into the comment section there, and I will try to get to as many as you can. Church Boy Media says, can you really get it on iTunes that fast? Absolutely, you can get it on iTunes that fast. Eyes TV says you definitely know what you're talking about. I've got the scars to prove I know what I'm talking about, man. Thank you for talking about this. Andy, thank you for checking in. Dory, good to see you here. Glad you could listen all night. I'm doing great. I hope you're doing well as well. Captain Happy Pants, good to see you in here as well. Dory pulls chair closer and starts to take notes. Good. That's the whole purpose of this thing. I've got barbecue and fries downstairs. I'm anxious. So I'm glad you're paying attention. Plastic Audio says, really great episode. Thank you. You are more than welcome, brother. Thank you for tuning in. Or a secret society meeting. Well, speaking of secret society, you should all join the revolution. Go to my website, thestevefreeman.com, and about halfway down the page, you'll see it says Join the Revolution. That is my new blog and newsletter and secret society, where I'm going to be putting out exclusive content for everybody that's a member of the revolution this year and beyond. It'll be stuff that I'm not posting on YouTube, that I'm not putting out in the podcast, or I'm not streaming on Twitch. But it's going to be a lot of powerful resources. If you are a business owner, a small business, or an independent artist, I can promise you that being a member of that is going to change your world this year. It's absolutely free. It's not a Patreon thing. It's none of that. It's just put your email in, first name, last name, email address, and join up. And I always tell people that I promise that I will not sell your information to anybody else unless they offer me a shit ton of money for your information, and then I'm going to sell it. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't sell your information. Maybe. I don't know. It depends on what that offer was. No, I wouldn't do it. Maybe. Let's see. Oh, I see what you're saying. I mean, in the most simplistic form, it's context what you were saying earlier. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, you have to invest in yourself. And when I say that, and when I say invest in yourself, it is going to take money to do. If you want to start a business, it's going to take money. I was having a conversation with a client today, and we were talking about the amount of money that they've put into their business. And my thing was, I said, but you've done it wrong. You did it the other way. If you had $100,000 to start a business, you've put $80,000 into the product and $20,000 into the marketing. That spells disaster. So you do have to invest in yourself, and there is a financial component to it. But if you enjoy what you're doing, different story. If you're really passionate about it, that's a completely different thing. Well, let's see if anybody. I'll check over here and see. Wow. Okay. Now I'm learning something. This thing over here that's supposed to throw all these comments from all three different platforms is not doing that. So I opened up YouTube, and there's a whole bunch of comments that I've not gotten to. So let me see if I can do that. God, man, I'm turning 42, and I think I need glasses. Let's see. Samuel Adams says, having an entertainment lawyer helps a lot. It got us to showcase with Jeff Stevens. Yeah, I mean, that could be a podcast all to itself. In all honesty, one would argue that a really, really good entertainment attorney is more valuable than a management company, or because every entertainment lawyer in Nashville now is a manager. They just don't call themselves managers. So, I mean, that's, just make sure you're with a good one. That's all that matters. Because the problem on the back end with having a lawyer do everything for you is that they are embedded and involved in everything that you're doing. And the worst thing in the world sometimes is being in business with a lawyer. We worked regular jobs and paid a lot for it, but it was worth it. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And you achieve the goal. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the thing, is that this is a relationship business. It is most definitely a relationship business. But that relationship is only as good as the product. Nobody signs a shitty artist because you're friends with so-and-so. I mean, you got to bring the goods. That's the thing. A lot of times, too, and I'll just make this really quick on the relationship side of this, the thing you have to understand is that just because somebody has a relationship with that person doesn't mean that relationship is going to be utilized or is the best utilization for you. See, I've run into this many, 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 many times where this person has a relationship with this person, but that relationship may be based on golfing together. That relationship may be based on they may go to church together. That relationship could be based on they see each other at Cars and Coffee every Saturday morning, or they're a member of this club together, or they go over here. They may have the relationship, but it may not be that relationship where it's that kind of relationship that's going to benefit you, the artist. It may not be that relationship of, we have a history of doing business together. Like I said earlier, going back to, I'll never forget this as long as I live. This was maybe 10 years ago. There was a really and I have no idea where this kid is now, but there was a really, really, really good white rapper here in Nashville that I wanted to sign to the record label and work with on some level. And I remember meeting him in the parking lot, the old Shoney's parking lot on Demumbrian. And my uncle worked for me at the time. And I said, come on, we're going to go talk to this kid. He's going to bring some music. We're going to listen to it. And he got in the car and for an hour kept telling me about, well, I know this person and this person over here at Universal, and I know this person, and you know, this person told me this, and they're going to help me out with this, and they're going to do this. And we got done listening, and I'll never forget it. My uncle looked at him and said, what the hell are we doing here? That's what I'm talking about. I don't doubt for a second that he had all of these relationships, but they weren't the kind and nature of relationships that were going to help him as an artist. So you got to be real careful when you're talking about utilizing, renting, or playing on somebody else's relationship. You've got to make sure that they have the nature of that relationship, and those relationships that they have has a track record of making things happen for somebody else that you expect that person to use their relationship to do for you. Very important thing. Very important thing. Because look, this is a as big as the music business is, it's really a goldfish bowl. Everybody knows everybody. I know Scott Borchetta. But that doesn't mean that every time I've got an artist I'm developing, I can pick up the phone and call Scott and say, hey, you need to sign this person. And they go, have them in the office first thing in the morning. We'll have the contract ready. We all have relationships with everybody. But I also know which relationships that I have that I've invested in that can actually do something. Where we have that track record of, you know, when you've got something great, bring it to me. We have that kind of a relationship. I don't have that relationship with everybody. Even though I know the person and I might have a relationship, I don't have that kind of relationship. So be very aware when somebody goes, oh, I know so-and-so, I can make a phone call. Well, okay, every phone number from every major label and publisher, their phone numbers are listed. Anybody can make a phone call. Very simple. Diana Flynn says, how do you feel about co-writes? And how does a singer know when they found a good fit with a writer? Well, let me address the back part of that first. We don't really necessarily have the Elton John, Bernie Taupin thing go again where, you know, you see one artist pair up with a writer and it becomes a team. We don't really have that much anymore. Now, there are, when you do see that, you see that as a reason of they are more in the same camp with one another. They are either signed to the same publishing company or the artist is on Sony and all their buddies write for Sony and Sony wants to keep all that money in one pot, or Universal or Warner Brothers or whoever else. And so you see that, but you don't see that artist going, okay, I found my writer. You don't see that very often. You see it more so in the TV and film world. And that mainly is because the people, the music supervisors that make the decisions for television shows and movies, they have a list of people that they trust and that they know are going to deliver a product that they like. And so you see a lot of those kind of relationships. But to answer the question, how does a singer know when they found a good fit with a writer? It's never about the writer, it's about the song. And I don't think there's one writer that can write the song or these songs for any particular artist. It just historically is not really that way. How do I feel about co-writes? I co-write all the time. 99.999% of every song that I've written in the last 15 years have been co-writes. We don't write by ourselves, because that's not an effective way to do business. When you do it at this level, it is all about business. It's all about revenue. So my publisher wants me in the room with another songwriter that has another major publishing deal so that song has the best chance, because two powerhouse people are out there trying to get the song cut. So I love co-writing. Any time that I write by myself now, I'm really writing to get down ideas that I want to take into a room with another specific writer. To get those ideas together to take into the room. Every once in a while, I'll slip up and finish one by myself, but very rarely does it end up that way. I'll bring it up in a write or something like that, and 9 times out of 10, the whole purpose of co-writing is that you open that up and you allow somebody else that has a different perspective than you do to add something to that song. Some of the most successful songs that I've had that have made the most money have been cut by female artists, and I'm not a female. So I had an idea, and I had maybe a verse and a chorus, or maybe we didn't have anything, but an idea, but I needed the female perspective to add to that. So some of the most my family gives me shit over this all the time. Some of the most successful songs I've ever had cut have dealt with alcohol. I don't drink. So it's always the idea behind co-writing is to sit in the room with somebody that has a different perspective, a different idea, or a different spin. It's a collaborative process. So I only co-write to get right down to it. Now, I will not do this thing, and this has been a thing, coming on the last 5 years, where, especially when I'm writing with a major label artists, where they'll bring somebody in with them so that they can the pie gets split even more. I won't do that. I'll do co-writes. I'll do 3-ways, and if I'm writing with a band, that's kind of a different structure. But I don't do this thing where I walk into a room and there's 5 people in there. I won't do that. It's not even if that song goes on to hit number 1, there's not enough money to go around for anybody in the room to really make anything that makes that 4 hours of writing that song worth it. So I'm real picky about that. When I go to LA, things in LA are done really differently, and you have to be very careful about out there, because you can write a song. I can write a song with Billy Falcon, and it can go out west, and it's for this particular project, and by the time you get it back, the producer has taken a songwriter's credit. The guy that was sweeping up the floor in the studio that said, I might put a little hi-hat in between right there, he gets a songwriting credit. And I've had it happen. I've had it a co-write go out for something and come back where it was just me and the other writer, and it's come back with 9 writers on it. That's why if you go, it's hard to find CDs, I know, but because nobody buys them anymore. But go buy a Beyonce CD. Go buy Beyonce's last CD and open up the liner notes. There are literally songs on that record that have 27 to 30 songwriters listed on them. That's because everybody that had anything to do with that song whatsoever is taking a cut of it. I don't do that. If you weren't in the room and you didn't write the song with me, you're not getting a damn thing. I'm not giving anybody any credit for doing anything if they weren't in the room doing it. So that's how I feel about co-writes. And you should co-write. You should co-write every opportunity that you get. Don't sit in a room and lock yourself away and think that you're going to come out with a gem. Because I can promise you, as good as you think a song might be, there's always somebody that can add a different perspective that'll make that song better. Every single time. Garen says, your thoughts on the Oscars only allowing 2 of the nominated songs to be performed during the ceremony. Look, I'm going to put this out there, and I'm heavily involved in the film industry. Heavily. But I will say that, to me, it's just another bastardization of the music business. There again, we're showing just how little we value it. I mean, we've talked about this before, but we are living in a society now where nobody, absolutely nobody, thinks twice about walking into Starbucks and paying $6 for a cup of coffee, but will bitch up and down and for hours on end over having to spend $1.29 on something that lasts forever. So it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me at all. We as a society, we as a business, we have allowed the devaluation of music to the point where we can no longer stand around and act surprised or shocked when other people don't value it. They didn't learn this on their own. Nobody woke up one day and just said music isn't worth the shit anymore. We did it to ourselves. We put that bullet in the gun, we rolled the chamber, and we stuck it to our head and pulled the trigger. When we turned this format in this business over to 10 to 17-year-olds, that's what we did. We turned an entire business, the music business, we turned its fate over to people who can't even drive and can't buy alcohol and don't pay taxes. So when everybody acts shocked that I can't believe they're doing this with music, I can't believe we did it. We're just lying in the bed that we made, unfortunately. And now there's no going back. We will never be able to go back and see. It's like I was saying the other day. I don't remember if it was on this show or if I was on another show or what I was doing. But I was talking about the fact that, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if you were an artist on a major label and you sold 1 million copies of your album, if you went platinum, it was considered a failure. The label wouldn't even break even on what they spent in marketing and budget. When you sell 1 million records, it was considered a failure. Today, it is the absolute benchmark of success at the highest level. That has all changed in 10 years' time. Labels used to get gold records, the gold records. You could walk into studios and labels and all of that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and they wouldn't even put the gold records up because that was embarrassing. If it wasn't platinum or multi-platinum, it was embarrassing. You would find all the gold records in the janitorial closets because that was not meeting a standard of success. Today, people, trust me, they put up banners up and down 16th and 17th Avenue for something that has such a mediocre success level compared to what it used to be. Alex Diaz says, so how do these new flash-in-the-pan artists make so much money? Music itself has been so poor, it's sad. They're not making that much money. So you're buying into the perception. It looks like they're making a lot of money. They're not making a lot of money. Any artist that signs a deal today is signing a 360 deal, minimum. Every major label's doing it. So you've got, I'll tell you another story here in a second, but you've got to think of it like this. So they're signing a 360 deal. That means the record label's getting a piece of their touring, of their merch, of their record sales, their publishing. They're getting a piece of everything. Then they've got a business manager who's taking another 10%. Then they've got a booking agent who's taking another 15%. Then they've got a personal road manager. That guy's taking 5%. It doesn't cost a lot to look like you have a lot. Perception's cheap. Double entendre there. Perception is cheap. It's cheap to acquire, and it's very thin. They look like they're making money. But see, that is the record label spending the money. That is not the artist having the money. That is the record label spending money to make that artist look famous and be popular, because that is now the criteria of what it takes to get people to buy your music. It has nothing to do with how good the music is. It's how popular the artist is. So the record label just throws money around and gives the artist the money, but that is money that is not the artist's. It's a credit card. Every major label artist that you look at that's out there right now, their careers are bought and paid for on a credit card. They owe that record label every penny plus interest. And I'm not going to say who because he's a friend, and I don't want to throw his business out there. So I'm going to tell the story, but I'm not going to tell you who the artist is. All I'm going to say is this artist is one of the most popular artists in the world today. Let me just put it that way. Just broke even with his record label. When were we out there? We were at the Beverly Hills Hotel, the Polo Lounge. and we were having this conversation. And he told me that week, I think it was 2 years ago, just broke even with his record label. And the guy has had 20, 25 number ones, sold out concerts all over the world, merch lines, you name it. Just broke even with his record label 2 years ago. And he put his first single out in 1998. And he is literally one of the top artists in the world. So that's what it takes. So it's not that they have all this money. They don't. The record label does. And that's marketing and advertising 101. They want that artist driving that McLaren because that makes kids think that that's cool and they want to be like that artist. So they go buy their music because that is one thing that has not gone away, thank God, and that is we still have this little piece of us that we think when we buy the music, we're buying a piece of the artist. And the record labels are cashing in on that because the more famous they can make the artist perceived to be, they know that these kids, that's how kids are defining success, and that's how they want to be that artist. So they prop that artist up, and it's all perception. So it's not money that they have. Diana says, I left school in June of 2018 to pursue a music career. I've been performing live as much as possible and trying to organize as many co-writes as possible. Do you have any advice for me? Yes. Be persistent, be consistent, and be willing to sacrifice. It's hard. I know it's hard. I remember what it was like starting out. And it's hard. It's hard to get people's attention. It's hard to get them to want to write with you. But just be persistent. Be consistent with it. Keep sending those emails. If you've sent them 5 times and haven't heard back, send 6. You just got to keep going. That's it. I've said it a million times. I put this out on Twitter the other day. Do you know what the only difference between success and failure is? There is only one difference between success and failure, and that's the number of attempts. Period. So keep at it. Good luck. Keep sending those emails. Keep doing whatever you got to do. Push hard. Make yourself available and push hard. All right, guys, you got any more comments? Got any more questions? Oh, my God, we have gone for almost an hour and 45 minutes. This was supposed to be a 45-minute show when we first started this thing a couple months back. I don't think we've yet hit 45 minutes. We are getting close to where it's almost 2 hours every single show. But you know what? That's awesome. That's great. I love you guys. I love each and every one of you. And most importantly, I hope you get something out of it. That is the main thing, is I want you guys to be able to grow. It's like I said earlier, nothing would mean more to me than, and I mean this, this sounds corny as shit, but I promise you, each and every one of you, I mean this with all of my heart. Regardless of all of the financial success or business success that I have had in my career and I will continue to have, nothing will mean as much to me as being able, when I'm all said and done and I walk away from this, being able to look back and see those of you that were a part of this and that I've helped and that I've played some small part in be even half as successful as you want to be. That's what will mean the most to me. Because it's the same thing when you think about your kids, right? You want to see the best of yourself in your kids. And I want to see all of you succeed. I want to see all of you be happy by your definition, however you define it. Happiness or success, however you define it, I want that for each and every one of you. Guys, thank you so much for being with us for another episode of the Steve Freeman Podcast. Don't forget, it will be, if you were going to go back and you're like Dorian, you were anxiously writing down notes, but you may have missed something, it'll be available on demand a little bit later tonight once YouTube finishes processing this nice little gem of a 2-hour podcast. And it will be available starting at noon tomorrow on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. If you're not already, follow me on social media at The Steve Freeman on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Join the revolution. Go to thestevefreeman.com, enter your name and your email address, and come join the party. and be with us and get some of that awesome sauce like I've been talking all night. I'm going to start just vomiting awesomeness all over all of you all year. It's absolutely free to join. Guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I look forward to being with you again next Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Central on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube for the Steve Freeman Podcast. Guys, until then, go out, have an awesome rest of your week. Go Rams.
Your face in the crowd. I never thought that I would see you tonight. We lock eyes and you smile. Every single memory comes back to life. Your lips pressed against mine after a night out. We got drunk and ended up at your place. From the moment that I saw you, I knew that it was the bet that you felt the same.